Whoa. Here we go. World War II. War in the Pacific. Alright, so this is Japan, and Japan owns or is controlling all of the areas here in the red outline shaded in lined areas. Um, if you look at the far right of the map, you've got the Hawaii Islands over there where Pearl Harbor is. Then at the very bottom of the map, you got Australia. Those are the directions in which threaten the United States the most. Um, this is in 1942. Okay, so Japan needs all of these places. Maybe not necessarily need all of them, but they need many of them for their resources so that they can continue to expand their industry and to grow their militarism and their navy and make weapons and that kind of stuff. So War in the Pacific. United States is led by General Douglas MacArthur. He'll be important. We'll talk more about him in the 50s and the war in Korea. And then also Admiral Chester Nimitz. And his nickname is Hot Cheetos because Chester Cheetos. Kind of cheesy. Yeah, you got it. So, the goal for these guys in the United States is to blockade the imports. Since all of these things were so important as the resources for Japan to get, they could not produce them on their own. They had to go out into these other areas and get them from these other countries. So the United States wants to block the imports to go into Japan. Okay, so again, the Navy is going to be extremely important. Alfred Thayer Mann said that's the security of our nation depends on the Navy who can control the seas. And then taking strategic islands. We'll talk about the island hopping that involves getting as close to Japan as possible. There's two battles here that are considered the turning point in the War in the Pacific, and they both happened here in May and June 1942. So the battle at Coral Sea stopped the Japanese advancement, and the invasion. Can I speak or what? The invasion of Australia, going into Australia. And then the battle at Midway on June 4th, 1942. There's a decoding here that happens for the battle at Midway in which the United States knows exactly where the Japanese Navy is going to be, when they're going to be there. So that leads to the United States being successful in shooting down and destroying 300 of their planes and sinking 4 of their aircraft carriers. Sinking 4 aircraft carriers is significant. That the mobility of your planes to be able to engage in air battles and destroy things on the ground. This is a big victory for the United States. That's why it's considered the turning point here in 1942. So island hopping, I mentioned this before. This is the United States skipping over some islands, trying to get as close to Japan as possible. So we'll talk about some of the battles here in the Philippines and Okinawa and Iwo Jima as the most important ones. But the goal here is to blockade shipments into Japan and to get as close as you can to Japan so that you can invade the 4 main islands of Japan. So Iwo Jima, February through March 1945, this becomes a major island in which the United States occupies, again, getting closer to Japan. And then also the same time period invading the Philippines. Both of these are extremely difficult, fought on the land themselves, and you can see this iconic picture of the soldiers erecting the American flag or the U.S. flag on the hilltops here of Iwo Jima. Another battle in Okinawa, April 1st. So on the right side of the map, you can locate Okinawa as the end of the top arrow. Going there, you can see Iwo Jima is the one before that. And more wounded here at Okinawa in the battle than were at the beaches of Normandy on D-Day. So during this battle, you see the Japanese use the kamikaze tactics, which is you're out of ammunition, you're out of bombs, then you become the bomb as the plane. So the Japanese Zeros, they would dive into American ships to blow them up. when the United States got onto the land, most of these areas, like the Philippines and Iwo Jima and Okinawa, are covered in trees, and the enemy was often hiding behind the trees and the guerrilla warfare tactics. So the United States used flamethrowers on the ground to be able to chase out the enemy. The Yalta Conference, the big three, here they are. On the left, you have Churchill, the middle, FDR, on the right, Stalin. They will agree to a compromise here of the spheres of influence. And if you remember, with the Atlantic Charter, that was not supposed to be something that they were going to do. So this becomes important as each one of these countries, these major powers in the world, will not necessarily be imperialistic as far as physically controlling these areas with their military, but having an area of the world in which they have the most influence. So Russia over Poland and the Baltic region, you can imagine that those are the ones that are closest to Russia, protecting it from Europe. So that's why they would have those. The United States over islands in the Pacific, the threat of Japan and other Asian nations that might rise to power, then that gives the United States a buffer zone towards its western homeland in continental United States, and then Great Britain gets holdings in Asia as well. So this also negotiates the terms of the United Nations. We'll talk more about that at the end, which will happen in San Francisco, 1945. All of these agree that the Soviet Union is able to and allowed to, with no intervention, go to war with Japan when the war is over here, as agreed with the terms of peace after 3 months of surrender from Germany. So Manchuria, the areas of Mongolia, and above Korea, all border with Russia. So it's important that they define those, and they're going to go to war with Japan to get what they believe is rightfully theirs. Here's some Stalin memes. Stalin was a bad dude, killed millions of people. Anybody, again, this is a totalitarian regime, so there is no opposition. So he does have a pretty cool mustache. I'll give him that. Star Wars fans, you might enjoy this one. KFC fans, this one's probably finger looking good for your appetite of humor. The Bro Nation probably gets this one. The Holocaust. So as bad as Stalin was, Hitler was also just as bad, or if not worse, as they compete for who's the more evil leader. Hitler kills 6 million Jews, 250,000 gypsies, and 60,000 homosexuals. Remember, the Jews are the ones blamed for all of the bad stuff that happens to Germany. So Hitler takes it out on them to unify under the Aryan race, and the Jews did not belong in Hitler's eyes. So within the United States, though, there is skepticism whether this is actually happening during the war. There is information that is not released to the American public, and there's quite a bit of criticism afterwards whether Roosevelt knew about what was going on and didn't portray that to the American public. There's immigration laws that are put in place as well that don't allow refugees to come into the United States for fear that there might be some sort of spies coming in with them. The Potsdam Conference, July 1945. You have two new leaders here, Clement Attlee from Great Britain, who replaces Churchill, and Truman, who replaces FDR, who suffers illness and dies suddenly. So that changes the outlook here. Stalin's the last one here of the original big three as the war gets started and now is coming to an end. So they agree that the Nazis will be tried as war criminals. Trials at Nuremberg. I don't know if you've seen that movie or not. They describe these Nazis being tried as war criminals, war crimes. Reparations, you got to pay. Um, Germany's going to have to pay for all the damages. And then a division of Germany into 4 zones of occupation. You got to remember this. This was on your test, the Potsdam Conference. Remember that for your test. I missed the opportunity on the last one with the damn jokes, and this is another Potsdam, so um, don't miss this damn question on the test. The 4 zones will be divided by Germany in Germany by the Allies here. So the French will get a zone, the Russians will get a zone, Great Britain will get a zone, and the United States will get a zone. Yeah, the United States gets a zone, even though they're not anywhere near Germany, but the other ones are. Okay, and we'll talk about this impact in the Cold War as the 50s roll out and the impact beyond that. Truman, during the Potsdam Conference, receives word that there has been a successful attempt of the A-bomb in Los Alamos, New Mexico, with the Manhattan Project. That the Trinity was the name of the first bomb that's exploded here, knowing that they're able to use nuclear weapons. So the A-bomb, Manhattan Project, Los Alamos, New Mexico, developed and tested the atomic bomb. The meme is funny, but Einstein also comes from escapes Germany as being a Jew and pressures the Congress and FDR to develop the bomb, because the fear is that if Germany gets it or somebody else gets it, that would lead to some real bad things happening. So the race is on to develop this atomic bomb here, and this is what one of the directors says. When the first atomic bomb went off, the temperature at ground zero was 100 million degrees Fahrenheit, 3 times hotter than the interior of the sun, 10,000 times the heat on its surface. All life, plant, and animal within a mile radius of ground zero simply vanished. The general director here turned to his deputies and said, "The war's over. 1 or 2 of these things, and Japan will be finished." So Robert Oppenheimer is the person in charge here of the testing of the A-bomb, the development of the A-bomb in New Mexico. And the first one is dropped on Hiroshima, August 6, 1945. You need to remember this for your quiz. You can see the mushroom cloud on the left. If you want to look at the video here at the bottom, I'll give you some more information on there. It's not really that good of one, so that's why I didn't show it to you. But you can see the picture here, the destruction of the city and beyond. The second bomb was dropped on Nagasaki on August 9th. There was a plan for a third bomb in place for deployment, but it was not yet ready. So if you remember what we talked about as far as Japanese plan and strategy for the war, they didn't want to be captured. The kamikazes that were used to finish off the U.S. ships as their last bomb being the plane itself. This mindset can somewhat explain why the Japanese did not want to surrender, but because of these 2 bombs, there was really no other option unless they wanted to endure more destruction and more lives being lost. So there's a surrender sign, September 2nd, 1945. And the end of the war here, the United Nations forms in October 1945, so quite quickly, what was the League of Nations after World War I, which was rejected by Congress, the United Nations is sped up by Congress during this time under Truman. The United States comes out of this extremely powerful and wealthy, even though they will be in increasing national debt. That doesn't mean that they aren't wealthy. Many people in debt have lots of wealth. They're the only country here, really, of the world powers that's not involved in tons of destruction. So, yes, Pearl Harbor was destroyed and many ships were destroyed. People lost their lives. I'm not trying to diminish those. But as far as comparing it to Europe and the destruction there and Japan and the surrounding islands, um, the destruction is much more. So, those recovery time periods for those countries and those governments and those economic areas are going to be much tougher than the United States. So in the United States, there's plenty of optimism towards peace and democracy in the world. They there's this strong sense that this now is going to lead towards better things. It doesn't, but there's this optimism that develops in the society of the United States around the victory in World War II for the Allies. The United States goes into debt, $250 billion of national debt, most of that from the war bonds that were agreed upon with the individuals and the United States government. And then you have losses of lives, 300,000 that are killed in the war and 800,000 that are wounded for the United States. So again, we'll talk when we get back to school about the longer impacts, looking at the 50s and 60s and beyond. But here's some reminders for the quiz on Monday. You're going to have a quiz on chapters 24 and 25. So you got 10 questions from each. And if you've watched the videos, I've explained which ones you should note for your notes on the quiz questions topics. This one was pretty funny, I thought. And of course, Oprah. You got to work in Oprah. Think back to Jefferson. Everybody gets a farm. Everybody's going to get a quiz. And some of you will walk in on Monday and look like this koala. Alright, it's probably 11:59 on Sunday night, and you finished. For some of you, it's probably more like 2:30 a.m. on Monday. You're going to turn in your notes when you get back. So, congratulations on watching all of these, and hopefully you learned something. See you later.